So, what do you think of the new intro? Too long? No, that actually goes back to the summer. I think at one point in July or August, I had made a video, plans for 3.0, little did we know. And I had said, you know, I want to get on a dragonfly, land on a planet, and go chasing after a sunrise. Can't remember what video I said that in, or if, I don't know, I might have cut it out of a video. I'm not even sure anymore. But that's one thing that I definitely wanted to do, and that was one hell of an odyssey. Because the build that I was working on when I filmed this was not an ideal build. And it took roughly about an hour to get this whole thing done. What you're seeing here is the trip, but getting down to the planet, landing, pulling out that dragonfly, the yellow jacket, was brutal. Because the game was really having, whatever happened with the weekend patch, the game was in a very rough spot. So it was very hard to kind of get any kind of footage. And what you're seeing right now is just the raw footage that, you know, I kind of cut together and shortened to make that video kind of chasing the dawn. So yeah, I mean, it's something I wanted to do. Mission accomplished. Towards the end, you can really start to see the video stuttering a little bit, and that's because at that point I think I had been filming for roughly an hour, and yeah, like my computer was just like, dude, you need to chill and just let me sleep for a day because this shit sucks now. It's you can tell when your computer is suffering, you know, when it's really kind of had too much. And a lot of it, you know, when you're away from a planet, when you're up high, a lot of it seems to have to do with having to load in a lot of objects, load in a lot of information, a lot of detail that otherwise you wouldn't see. Like if I had just stayed at high altitude, I probably would have gotten a lot smoother footage, but I kind of came down a little bit. And that was actually something I didn't know about the dragonflies. You could actually take this thing up fairly high in altitude. If I had had to pick my way through all the valleys and the canyons and film this, especially with the fact that the headlights, and I'm using air quotes when I say headlights, on this bike are useless. So I never would have been able to finish this had this bike not have been able to go up to high altitude. So that was actually a pretty decent surprise. And something to bear in mind if you're thinking about getting a space bike. Actually, they seem to be way high up there. You can hover them and get around. That was, yeah, that was really cool to find out. But obviously, we're not just here to talk about my space bike odyssey. I am going to leave the footage up in the background. But, of course, what happened with the scout carrier and the salvage ship? Uh-oh. Salvage ship seems to be in the lead. So, obviously, people who wanted the scout carrier are going to be, or possibly going to be, a little disappointed. But, you know, it's nothing I think to immediately worry about, because there's one important takeaway from this whole thing. They have acknowledged it. CIG wouldn't have stepped up and said any of these ships in this contest if they weren't willing to build all of them. Now they knew which way, you know, this was going to go. We all thought we knew which way it was going to go, and it ended up going to the salvage ship, or it seems to be going that way. And of course, an entry-level salvage ship isn't a bad idea, but more importantly, the escort carrier has shown its viability, because whereas right now at the recording of this video, the Vultures at 45%, the Kraken, which is the escort carrier, is at 37%. There is a market out there for this thing. There is an interest in this thing, and there is definitely a gap in the Star Citizen lineup that this thing can fill. And I think that, you know, we can say that CIG isn't allergic to money, so obviously I think that this is definitely something that is on the menu for the future. So even if it doesn't win this vote, you know, even if it won today, let's just say they closed the vote today, and however it all worked out, they were like, no, you know what, the Kraken, it's going to be the Kraken. Just because they say it today doesn't mean it goes into the pipeline today. They still have to concept it. They still have to come up with a design. They have to kind of put ideas out there. And then, you know, we got to get out there and we got to kind of maybe help shape those ideas in the right direction. Because some of those ideas, you know, a truck stop in space, I don't think so. You know, where they were talking about the Han Solo ship, the big one from the beginning of Force Awakens, I was kind of into that. I was kind of like, okay, yeah. But when they were talking about truck stop in space, I was like, whoa, no. So I think there's definitely time to have an informed discussion about it and to kind of put some really good ideas up out there and kind of show them where the interest lies with that ship. And even if it ends up being the salvage ship, which it looks like it will be, it's really no big loss because those two could make a heck of a team. Now, let me tell you what I would do. Let's say CIG came to me and said, okay, we're going to go ahead with the Kraken. We're already building this Vulture thing. You know that this can't be a frontline military vessel, minion. You know that it can't be. It can't be armed to the teeth. You can't have everything you want all in one. But what would you propose? What would you do? I'd say, all right. First of all, let's get a visual starting point. Let's get kind of a good idea. We're obviously not going to go one for one and copy anything, but we need a starting point. We need a place to build from. So I would look at a similar idea, or what I think is going to be a similar idea, but in this case, something that is far larger than what I intend to build. So it would have to be scaled down, but I am going to pull from the EVE Online universe and say my starting point would be the Hell mothership / supercarrier. Now, the reason why I would want to use this as the basis is it's got the big gaping maw right in the front of it and it's open in the middle. That's one thing that I would like to see into this design. They say, okay, but it can't be a military ship. That's fine. You can have point defense weapon turrets. You can have that, but you can't have big guns. Fine. Can I have large tractor beam turrets to help guide ships into my shopping area and my maintenance bay in the middle of my large carrier? Can I have that, please? Well, yeah, you can have that. Could they also be so powerful that maybe they could pull an unwilling starship into the central bay of my ship? Possibly. I would look to build like a large maintenance facility within it, a salvage facility, not something obviously that you can say, oh, you can fly a whole Crucible or you can fly a whole Reclaimer into it. Obviously not. But smaller ships like a Freelancer, a Cutlass or anything could be kind of pulled inside of it, dismantled, and then there could be like a little bazaar area where you can sell off the parts, that sort of thing. That's kind of the direction I would go. And because, you know, the name Kraken, you know, this great sea beast that kind of pulls ships underneath, that's kind of where I would go with this. That's where the direction that I would take this thing. And that's kind of the general basic shape that I would look for. A large opening in the front, maybe something octagonal or hexagonal or however, whatever pronouncement, who cares? That's what I would kind of go for, with a large open space in the front. And then it's still a Drake ship, right? It's got its many uses, you know, which are various, and a few uses which are nefarious, you know. I think that kind of fits overall with the Drake motif. That's the direction I would go with this thing. And also because it's got the, you know, it's got all those spaces to park ships, maybe it can launch a whole bunch of Vultures out where maybe the target is too big, but it can kind of hold it in place while the little Vultures go back and forth and slowly take it apart. That's the direction I would head in this ship. I think that would be an exciting direction and a fun direction. And that way, if the Vulture wins, fine. The Kraken, it's going to get made. It's going to get made. You know, say whatever you want about CIG, but the one thing we can all agree on, they ain't allergic to money. And I think that people saying escort carrier, oh, it's not going to get made because it lost the vote. Dude, they're going to make it. they are going to make this thing anyway. I mean, why wouldn't they? Everybody wants it. The fact that they even said it when they put it up for a vote, they were already admitting we're willing to do this now. So guess what? You're going to see it. Whether it wins the vote or not, you're going to see it. And so even if the Vulture wins, the Vulture still presents some interesting ideas and some interesting gameplay in concert with other vehicles and other ships. Now, you know, one thing that when we were going over the week and they were talking about all these new ships coming up, I find it interesting that we're not talking about the cutter that comes with the Reclaimer, you know, the little ship that comes with the Reclaimer, sort of like the 890 Jump has the, what is it, the 85X? The Reclaimer has a little launch that it can put out there and it can use to cut, you know, ships, and it can also use to identify components. Maybe if you forgot about that, we can use the Vulture. Maybe. I'm just thinking, just spitballing ideas. But yeah. So you know, however this vote goes, don't get mad about it, because you know the Kraken is going to get built. If you're sitting there going like, why are people voting for this thing? We need the Kraken. Dude, it's going to happen. They wouldn't have put it up for a vote if they weren't already willing to build it. And they know that people want it. So it's going to happen. Yeah. There's a lot of interest in a scout carrier, not just from, say, you know, the darker corners of society, but even way out there are people who want these big ships. You know, way up there in the UEE and the mercenary and the legitimate crowd, they all want these ships, and they've been asking for these ships since like the beginning. You know, when they first saw the Idris, and they were like, how many ships does the Idris hold? 3. And they're like, we need a carrier. We need a pocket carrier. I mean, like, this is a discussion that's been going on for years. Dude, it's going to happen. It's fun to have a vote up there and everybody gets to cast their ballot, but we know they are going to build it. Now, I want to close out this show with a second topic, which is, you know, today is the last day of the sale. People are kind of like, ooh, should I get this? Should I get that? This is my last chance, my last chance. Am I missing an opportunity here? Am I missing an opportunity over there? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? So a blanket answer to all those questions is just make sure you're in a good spot for 3.0. You might say, oh, but I don't want to miss out on this ship, or I don't want to miss out on that ship, and this is my last chance to get an Orion at the normal price before, because they're going to make it more expensive when it's 100% bigger. They're obviously going to make it more expensive, but I don't know if I want to mine. That can happen. That can happen. But just right now, I would say the most important thing is make sure you have the right things for 3.0 and beyond. Now, if you're thinking, you know, is this a good time to get in on an Orion? I've been thinking about it. I'm a miner. I wouldn't say it's a bad idea, because the ship got 100% bigger, but the price is still the old price. Not a bad investment, I don't think. Just look for things that that are in line. Like if you're buying a long-term goal ship, look for things that are in line with the career that you want to take up in Star Citizen. And if anything, on the small end, make sure that you have something that you can really enjoy 3.0. I'd say make sure you got a space bike and like a Cutlass or a Freelancer, even if you're going to melt it down the road, and get rid of it. And, you know, use it for something else. Just so you have something to kind of get around in 3.0 with and enjoy it and explore the game. I don't think that that's a bad idea. And if you're worried about missing out on a ship opportunity, you know there's going to be more concept ships next year. And you know the game is not going to be finished by next November, so we're going to have another anniversary sale, and they're going to bring out more interesting and cool ships. Who knows? You know, next year, instead of a poll, you might be having to choose between a Vulture or purchasing maybe something a little more monstrous. Anyways, that's the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.